Hey guys, it's Duana. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have another sew along and this is for my Lulu wrap dress. The Lulu wrap dress has three views. View A is the parallel straps. So the shoulder straps go straight to the back. There's a cross back straps, which is view B, which is the one that I did here. And that is, of course, X back, and view C is the halter ties. So it just ties in the back. One thing I love about this dress is how you tie it. So it's not the typical wrap dress tie. It's more of I'm passing it through grommets and then I'm making the tie. And I think that just adds a little uniqueness to it. For this dress, I didn't use contrast, but imagine using contrast on the waist ties. That would be super cute. It'll give it a nice little pop. You know what I'm saying? This dress is perfect for the spring and summer or in anywhere that's warm weather, even on vacation. Okay, if you're going to the Caribbean, you can wear this dress. I love it. It's super cute. You can use many different types of fabrics for this. For this particular sew along, I used linen, but you can also use a stable knit with it. It is very flexible. There's an elastic back, so it adjusts to many different sizes and bust sizes. So without further ado, let's get started on the Lulu wrap dress sew along. All right, let's take a look at our supplies. We're going to need our fabric, interfacing, 1-inch non-roll elastic, and 1-inch grommets or eyelets. All right, let's take a look at our pattern pieces. This is pattern piece number 1. This is the bodice front, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. This is pattern piece number 2. This is the bodice back, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. Pattern piece number 3, the front facing, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric and 2 of interfacing. This is pattern piece number 4. This is the back facing, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric, 2 of interfacing. And this is pattern piece number 6. This is for the cross back straps, and we're going to cut 2 of fabric. This is pattern piece number 8, the waist tie, and I'm going to cut 2 of fabric on the fold, while keeping in mind I will be cutting one shorter. This is pattern piece number 9. This is the pocket. This is optional, but you're going to cut 4 of fabric. Pattern piece number 10. This is the eyelet or grommet guide, and you're just going to cut 1 of interfacing. All right, so now let's get started. For this pattern, there's a lot of markings that you'll have to make. Make sure before moving forward that you make all the markings that are on the pattern, making note of which sides you will have left markings or right markings. Also, make sure any markings for the back is also done before you start sewing. So once you've made all your markings, we are going to start with our darts. So we're going to start with our bust dart. You're going to bring the 2 dart legs together with right sides facing. Align the dart lines precisely so the fabric edges and markings match, and the fold should run directly through the dart point. Pin along the dart legs to secure. And then you're going to match the points for the waist darts. And when sewing a bust dart, you're going to start sewing from the edge, which is the widest part of the dart, towards the dart point. For the waist dart, you can just start at the top of the point and work your way around until you get to the end of the other point. Repeat that for the waist darts in the back pieces as well. As I come to the end of my dart, what I like to do is stop close to the edge and just turn my needle a bit and just slowly go as close to the edge as possible. And I'll pull my thread out without back stitching. When finishing off a dart, it is best to not backstitch. It's just best to take the extra threads and tie a knot. And this is so it doesn't pucker. Look at that beautiful waist dart. As you can see, I serged around my pattern pieces, and of course this is optional. So after you're done your darts, you're going to press your bust darts downwards and your waist darts to the center front if it's a front piece and the center back if it is a back piece. Now take a look at the triangle marking on the wrong side of the left side of the bodice front. I know that was a mouthful. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your pattern piece number 10, which is your eyelet or grommet guide, and you're going to match the triangle markings of the grommet guide to the front bodice. So the grommet guide should be on interfacing, and that way you can press the interfacing onto the fabric. And here, this is what it should look like. All right, so go ahead and grab your back pieces again. And with right sides together, you're going to pin the back pieces together at the center back. Make sure to also match your notches. And when you're done pinning, you're going to take it to your sewing machine and stitch it together. And once you're done, make sure you press the seams open. Now we're going to add the pocket pieces. So check to make sure you have your markings. And I know the markings are hard to see here, so I'm going to reinforce them with this pink chalk pen. And so now that your markings are done, you want to place the pocket pieces right sides together with the bodice. And you're going to pin that together. And you're going to do that with all 4 pocket pieces. When you're done pinning all 4 pocket pieces, now you're going to take it to your sewing machine. You're going to stitch your pockets to the bodice. And this is what it should look like. So now you're going to take your front and back pieces, and with right sides together, you're going to match the pockets of the front and the pockets of the back. So now go ahead and pin those together, matching notches. So once you're done pinning the front and back bodice together, you're going to leave the opening between the squares on both sides open. So you're going to stitch around the pocket. Just remember not to sew in between the square markings. When you get up to the square markings, you're going to back stitch, and then you're going to start again at the second square markings. And now you can finish by going around the pocket. Make sure your seam is facing towards the pocket. Once you've pressed the seams open, you're going to top stitch around the opening between the squares on both sides. So once you are done, you should have an opening for your waist ties to go through. All right, so now let's work on the straps. I'm going to be doing the cross back straps. So take the shoulder straps and you're going to fold them right sides together in half and stitch 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now take the waist ties and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to fold them right sides together in half and stitch 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And for the waist ties, you want to seal one of the ends as well. I used a loop turner to turn them right sides out. And it's pretty simple to use. You want to pass the loop turner through the strap and you want to hook it on to the end and pull it out. And as you're pulling on it, it should turn right sides out. And now you can repeat for all the straps and the waist ties. So once you've turned all of the shoulder straps and waist ties right sides out, you want to make sure you press it nice and flat so that you can attach it to the bodice. And now we're going to attach our waist ties to the bodice. If you haven't done the markings for the waist ties, go ahead and do that now. All right, let's start with the waist ties. We're going to match the raw edge of the longer waist tie on the outer triangle of the front bodice. And now you're going to pin those together. And so now looking at the triangle marking on the wrong side, you're going to grab the shorter waist tie and you're going to take the finished edge of the shorter waist tie and you're going to place it on the right side of the fabric where the triangle marking is. And you want to make sure that the waist tie is facing towards the front bodice. So go ahead and pin that in place. Once you've pinned the waist ties in place, you can go ahead and stay stitch to the bodice. Once you've stay stitched the waist ties to the bodice, now you're going to finish the raw edge of the shorter waist tie. And I finished it by using a ladder stitch. And basically, I just turned in the raw edges and then I took a needle and thread and I did the ladder stitch method to seal the end closed. You can also just edge stitch the top if you do not know how to do the ladder stitch. And now we're going to place the shoulder straps to the bodice. I love me some crossback straps, so that is why I chose to do crossback for this sew along. And the crossback straps is view B, but there are also two other options that you can do the straps. There's view A, the parallel straps, and there's also view C, the halter back. So with all the straps, you are matching the circle markings, and with the crossback straps, you want to make sure the angled ends go on the back bodice. The most important thing is also that you make sure that your straps are flat so that it's not twisted when you finish sewing it to the bodice. So with these straps, if they are too long, you can trim them down. So I would suggest testing them out before you baste them on. So use pins to kind of get an idea of if the straps are a good length for you. Once you've decided it's a good length, you can go ahead and baste stitch the shoulder straps to the bodice. So now grab your facings and they should be already interfaced. And with right sides together, you're going to pin the bodice back facing pieces together. And with right sides together and matching notches, you're going to pin the front facing pieces to the back facing pieces. Now take it to your sewing machine and you are going to stitch all of those pieces together. All right, now with right sides together, you're going to stitch the facing to the front and back bodice, matching notches and seams. Make sure your shoulder straps and waist ties are out of the way and facing towards the bodice. So once you're done pinning, go ahead and take this to your sewing machine. And when you're sewing it together, you want to start at the center back and work your way around, and you're going to do that to both sides. Now you're going to take your facing and you're going to understitch as far as possible along the back, along front, along the sides, basically anywhere you can understitch the facing. I understand that with corners it's much harder to understitch, and that's okay. You don't have to do every single part. Just do as much as you can. And with understitching, you want to make sure that you're stitching on top of the facing with the seam facing towards the facing, if that makes sense. All right, so take a look at that understitching. I was able to understitch the back, the bust area, the sides. All right, and that's what it should look like. And now we're going to add the elastic, but first we're going to use the elastic guide to see how long we want to cut our elastic. Now, just for record, this is just a guide, and so you can shorten your elastic if need be. You can use longer elastic. The biggest thing that I would recommend is to test it out before stitching it to the back bodice. So what you're going to do is you're going to stitch a straight line about 1 1/4 inches away from the top of the back bodice. And this would go from one end of the back facing to the other end. I passed the elastic through with a safety pin. You want to make sure that it's a strong safety pin, or otherwise it can break apart in the tunnel. So I highly recommend using a heavy duty safety pin for this. Another thing is the type of elastic you use does matter. I highly recommend a non-roll elastic. Once you're done passing the elastic through, I used a clip just to hold it in place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and stitch in the ditch on both sides of the back bodice to keep the elastic in place. And of course, trim off any extra elastic pieces. Okay, so we're almost done. We're going to hem the bottom of the dress. You want to make sure that front facing is open, and you're going to fold up the bottom of the dress by about 1/2 inch. I highly recommend giving this a good press. Now you're going to fold back the facing, all right? And you're going to stitch 5/8 of an inch across the facing. And make sure you've done this to both sides. All right, so now you're going to fold it over right sides out. And I highly recommend pressing it again. Once you've folded it over, you'll notice that there should not be any more raw edges being seen. And then you're going to stitch across the bottom 4/8 of an inch from the edge. Now it's time to add the eyelets or grommets. You may use 1-inch grommets or eyelets. Keep in mind the grommet and eyelet size need to be large enough to pass the straps through. So to start placing the eyelets or grommets, you want to snip a small X through the fabric where the whole of the grommets or eyelets will be placed. And just note that not every grommet or eyelet looks the same. So this is just how I place the ones that I have. Once you are done snipping those small X's, you're going to grab your grommet tools. And take a look at your pieces and see exactly which part is the top and which is the bottom. The part that looks like a hat is most likely going to be the front. And you want your fabric face down, which mine already is, and you want the front of the grommet to go on the right side of the fabric. All right, and then there is also a tool, I'm not sure the name, but it looks like a cylinder that's going to go at the bottom, and that's going to be the area where you place the front of the grommet. So once you've placed the front of your grommet onto that tunnel thing, you're going to pass it through. And now you're going to take your back piece and you're going to place it over that front. So it's going to be the fabric sandwiched in the middle between those two pieces. Then you're going to take your final tool and you're going to place it right on top of the back. So unfortunately, you cannot use your sewing table or a regular table to apply the force to put these together. So I highly recommend concrete or the floor just to apply that force to put the grommet or eyelet together. And once you're done applying the grommet or the eyelet, this is what it should look like. So now go ahead and do this for the remaining grommets. And once you're done adding the grommets to the left side of the bodice, you can go ahead and add the grommets to the right side of the bodice. And once the grommets are added, you are done. And so now here's a quick tutorial on how to wrap the Lulu wrap dress. Double check to make sure your waist ties are in the right position. You want to grab your longer waist tie and you're going to pass the longer waist tie through the waist hole on the right side and around the back of the dress. Then you're going to take that same long waist tie and you're going to pass the waist tie through the other waist tie hole on the left side and out of the top grommet. Now it's time to grab your shorter waist tie. You're going to take the shorter waist tie and you're going to pass that waist tie through the top grommet of the right side of the bodice. So now both waist ties should be facing towards the front. And now in a crisscross manner, you're going to pass the waist ties through the second grommet holes. It doesn't matter which one overlaps. So now both waist ties are going to be towards the inside. So now you're going to pull out the waist ties through the bottom set of the grommets, still following the crisscross from the inside. Now this is probably going to be the trickiest part if you're wearing it, but you just want to make sure that your grommets are lined up from the inside. And now that your waist ties are out towards the front, you can go ahead and tie it with a bow or a knot, and you are done. Hope you enjoyed this sew along of the Lulu wrap dress. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to tag Dwana Studio in your makes.